present Kenneth Williams, Derek Nimmo, Clement Freud and Lucy Bartlett in Just a Minute. And as the minute waltz fades away, here to tell you about it is our chairman, Nicholas Parsons.
Thank you very much indeed, and welcome once again to Just a Minute. To remind you of the rules, in case you may not remember them, we sometimes don't. Every person here must speak on some unlikely subject that I will give them for just a minute, without hesitation, without repetition, and without deviation. And this way they will gain points or lose them, and this, I hope, will become obvious as we play the game. And Derek Nimmo, let us this week begin with you. Derek, the subject is dog watch. Would you try and speak for just a minute on that subject, starting now?
My favourite one, really, is the poodle turnip. I often think this really is perhaps the most useful one in many ways. What you do is, you strap it onto the left foreleg, and so that the poodle can see it when it turns its head towards this particular instrument. Another kind, of course, is the Alsatian paw clock.
Clement Freud, you challenge. Why?
Hesitation.
Hesitation, indeed. As I have upheld your challenge, that means you gain a point. You have 37 seconds left for dog watch, starting now.
This is a naval term signifying something you do in front of the mast.
Derek Nimmo, why do you challenge?
Deviation's got nothing to do with what
It sounded extremely devious. I quite agree with you. All right, dog watch goes back to you, Derek Nimmo, and there are 34 seconds left, starting now.
It's a split watch, actually, of 2 hours. Between 4 o'clock...
Lucy Bartlett, you've challenged.
Well, I thought he hesitated a bit.
You're quite right. I quite agree with you. He did hesitate. Lucy, you have 30 seconds left for dog watch, starting now. Derek Nimmo, you challenge. Why?
Hesitation.
Hesitation, but it was totally unfair. She has just joined us. She's just about to open her mouth for the first time, so Lucy has a point, and she carries on with
always
the
lets
dog
her
watch.
win because she's pretty.
And a jolly good reason for doing it as well. Lucy, the dog watch, 29 seconds, starting now.
The dog watch is something that you buy in a children's shop.
Derek Nimmo, you challenge.
Well, hesitation.
Hesitation indeed that
I do
time.
beg
Derek,
pardon.
there are 26 seconds for dog watch, starting now.
It's 2 hours, you see. The normal watch is 4 hours long. Well, it's between 4 o'clock and
Clement
6...
Freud. Hesitation. Never had so many hesitations in one round before. 22 seconds for dog watch, Clement Freud, starting now.
Many people argue that giving a watch to a dog is a pointless exercise. But this is not, in fact, so, because dogs need to know the time quite as much as anybody else. A poodle on regular feeds every 6 hours would have no idea of when to take his meals unless another animal of the same sort had a watch with hands that...
Derek Nimmo, you challenge.
Well, too many watches, I'm afraid.
Yes, that's right. Yes, indeed there were. Far too many watches. There are 2 seconds left for dog watch, Derek, starting now.
And the second one is between 6 o'clock and 8 o'clock.
As Derek Nimmo was speaking when the whistle went, which told us that 60 seconds up, he gains another point, which puts him in the lead after the end of the first round. And Kenneth Williams has yet to score.
Ah, but wait, just wait.
We are waiting eagerly, Kenneth. It is your turn to begin this time.
Oh.
And something that you've managed to do, I think, on this particular game. The subject is how I get my own way. Would you try and talk for just a minute on that subject, starting now?
Well, funny though it may seem, I don't always get my own way because I'm a particularly selfless kind of person, but I do know how to get my own way on certain occasions. Now, take the example of when 2 people are consulting the list and one says, well, I'd like to do so-and-so tonight, and you say, no, I don't want to do that. The thing to do is when they say, I'd like to do so-and-so, you say, oh, all right, if you want to. And they say, well, don't you think it's good? You say,
Clement Freud, why do you challenge?
I suppose, but...
Clement Freud has challenged you, Kenneth. Excuse me.
The hesitation was quite deliberate, I was showing you.
However deliberate it may have been, it is still a hesitation.
Well, I think it's disgraceful.
Clement Freud has a point. He has 31 seconds for how I get my own way, starting now.
I hit people. I find this is by far the best way, and if they try in any way to prevent me from having it as I want it, I get a stick and I beat them about the head and the face, causing them grievous bodily harm, at which point they say, you're
Kenneth
quite
Williams, why do you challenge?
Mispronunciation, he said grievous. There's no such word.
Well, I thought you were going to challenge him for deviation.
Oh, deviation then, yes,
most-
that's right.
Kenneth, 16 seconds. How I Get My Own Way, starting now.
And this occurred with me in Venice, and I said I wanted to see this church, St. Mark's, and they said no, they wanted the gondola ride. So I pushed them right into the canal. And it was rather funny, actually, because they'd always been singing this song about waltzing in Venice, where you do fall in the canal, you know, waltzing in Venice.
Derek Nimmo, why do you challenge?
Repetition, 2 canals.
Yes, it was love the canals. It was very horrid, wasn't it? 2 seconds for How I Get My Own Way, Derek Nimmo, starting now.
I crawl towards the person fawning.
Well, as Derek Nimmo got in just before the whistle, he gained not only 1 point for his challenge, but 1 point for when the whistle went. Clement Freud, it is your turn to begin. What to tell the children about the birds and the bees? A subject that we've all talked about at different times, but Clement, can you talk now for 60 seconds, starting now?
The best thing to do in this case is to take your children to see a film in which the most Swedish and sexual things take place. And then when you get them...
Kenneth Williams, why
This is a deviation. This has nothing to do with birds and bees, films and sex.
I just think it sounds very devious, Kenneth. I quite agree. Those films are devious, and there are 50 seconds left for you to talk about what to tell the children about the birds and the bees, starting now.
You tell the children about the birds and the bees quite simply by going out with them and demonstrating. Show them the beehives and show them the birds. And the best way you can show them birds is by being a tree yourself. Stick a load of branches in you and make yourself look like a tree, and then stand absolutely still, and then the birds come right up to you and eat out of your hand. I've had them eating out of my hand. Dressed up
Clement Freud, by repetition of out of his hand. You got so carried away. You shouldn't have had so much in your hand, should you? Clement Freud, what to tell the children about the birds and the bees? There are 20 seconds left, 25 seconds left, starting now.
Coming back from the cinema, I say to my children, you remember what those nasty people on the screen did? Well, the birds and the bees do roughly the same sort of thing. And the children say, oh, thank you very much. We'd always wondered how they went about it.
Derek Nimmo, why do you challenge?
Hesitation, I'm afraid.
Oh, I don't think so. No. It was debatable, but I don't think so. Clement Freud, there are 12 seconds for what to tell the children about the birds and the bees, starting now.
You also tell them the color of the birds and the bees. The bees, I tell them, are black and gold and fly about making a small buzzing noise, whereas the birds are any sort of color and have a beak and 2 eyes.
Clement Freud has now crept up after that round. He's only 1 point behind our leader, who is still Derek Nimmo. Derek, my favourite sport. Would you try and talk for 60 seconds on this subject, starting now?
My favourite sport is Clement Freud. What a jolly old sport he is, I say. Often I'd see him, out in the park, running along in rather nasty long pants and a striped vest with number 7 on the back on a summer's morning, and he's running down the road. And I say, what a favourite fellow he is. What an awfully jolly old sport. Sometimes I see him stop, though, and leap onto a horse, because he's full of all sorts of sporting activities, because he rides, you know. He rides terribly well. He plays...
Clement Freud, why do you challenge?
Repetition keeps riding.
Yes, he rode more than once. Clement Freud, 34 seconds for my favourite sport, starting now.
My favourite sport is riding, which will surprise you a great deal. It needs a horse, a saddle, a bridle, stirrups, and the sort of clothes which...
Derek, hesitation indeed, yes. 23 seconds for my favourite sport, starting now.
My favourite sport is crown bowling.
Clement Freud.
Deviation.
What?
I am his favourite sport.
If I may say, there are 2 meanings to the word sport.
Yes.
Already established.
Yes, well, all right. I think the audience has well established it for us.
Yes,
they think that was a good challenge, a justified one. Clement Freud, 20 seconds for my favourite sport, starting now.
The great thing about riding is that it gets you fit and strengthens your leg muscles. It was of this sport that a man said, I sprang to the stirrups and jorks and I galloped, he galloped, we galloped, all 3. I cantered
Kenneth Williams,
behind
why do
them.
you challenge?
Deviation is completely untrue.
You could have had him for repetition of the gallop.
Oh, well, I wasn't going for that. It's completely untrue.
But it's bad luck.
Dirk galloped. It was none of
I'm
that
sorry,
jork.
it's still
Jorks
with
wasn't
Clement
even there.
Freud. There are 7 seconds left for my favourite sport, Clement, starting now.
Horse racing is a
Derek Nimmo, why do you challenge?
Horse. Too many horses.
Yes, he had a lot of horse,
records,
yes. A
very.
lot of horse. And there are 6 seconds for you, Derek. My favourite sport starting now.
I jump onto Clement Freud's back, dig my spurs into his thighs, put my whip above my head.
No, Clement Freud challenge first. Why?
too much Clement Freud. He said it 3 times.
Well done, well done.
I must
Clement Freud, you have gained a point for your...
wholeheartedly agree. There is too much. Very willing to lose a point in such a good cause.
Well, all right, Clement Freud with Clement Freud. You've gained a point. You have 1 second left for my favourite sport starting now.
Spares are
So Clement Freud and his favourite sport and others' favourite sports have taken him into a lead. He's now 3 in front of last round's leader, Derek Nimmo. Lucy Bartlett, it is your turn to begin. Tatting. Can you talk for 60 seconds on this subject, starting now?
Tatting is a very, very favourite word these days with people. I think they slightly abuse it and they overuse it. If you really want to know what it means it's a lot of old ladies in the north of France who took a piece of silk.
Derek Nimmo.
No hesitation. I didn't want to do it either. Really.
None of us wanted to do it, but still,
So
she'll come
sorry,
back
yes.
again, I'm sure.
Yes.
There are 45 seconds for tatting, Derek Nimmo, which you're going to talk about starting now.
Well, I take my needle in my right hand, and I get the cotton in my left hand, and I thread the silk through the needle. And then I poke it into a piece of material, which I have in front of me, and embroider the most beautiful and delectable patterns. Sometimes peacocks, sometimes hens, sometimes little sheep.
Clement Freud.
sometimes.
Repetition of sometimes, I quite agree, yes. Clement, you have another point. You have 27 seconds for tatting, starting now.
Many people feel that tatting is the art of seeing Jacques Tati in a maximum number of films, and this is a very good definition of the word because the actor is a very great comedian, a Frenchman, I admit, a man who is a foreigner to us, but nevertheless...
Lucy Bartlett, why do you challenge?
He's talking about Jacques Tati, not tatting.
Yes, he was, but he did establish that in his mind this was what tatting is. But I think I must, unfortunately, be fair and give it to Clement Freud. I'm very sorry, Lucy. So there are 12 seconds left for tatting, Clement Freud, starting now.
But there are people who feel that the word means something to do with material, embroidery, taking old clothes around from house to house, getting people perhaps to purchase it, which is called...
Clement Freud, it's your turn to begin this time. Other people's manners. 60 seconds. Would you try and talk on that subject starting now?
They are quite extraordinary, other people's manners. My manners are exemplary, but look across the desk at a man called Nimmo, Derek Nimmo, and you will have some idea of the depths to which other people's manners can sink. I have seen this man kick elderly women and children. I have seen him fleece orphans. I have seen him accept presents without saying please or thank you, which I think is about as bottomless a pit as one can sink into. But when I talk about other people's manners, one should not forget that there are people possibly even ill-mannered than Derek Nimmo.
Derek Nimmo, why have you challenged at last?
Oh dear, repetition, too many Derek Nimmos.
And you were
There
reluctant.
couldn't be too many Derek Nimmos.
So you certainly try and address it all. Derek Nimmo, there were, alas, in that piece, too many of you, so there are 16 seconds for you to talk on other people's manners, starting now.
Little Carlton in Lincolnshire is my favourite other person's manner. Great Cardshalton, which is near Southampton, is another one of my more...
Kenneth Williams, why...
Nowhere near Southampton.
Right.
Kenneth Williams' knowledge of geography gains him a point. And there are 5 seconds, Kenneth, for you to talk on other people's manners, starting now.
Other people's manners sometimes do affront us when they're strangeness, but then, of course, they may be foreign. I mean, you never know.
Kenneth Williams, the audience are with you. Derek Nimmo, it's your turn to begin. Waiting for the phone. I must explain that Derek Nimmo's writing something. The subject is waiting for the phone to ring. Starting now.
What I do when I'm waiting for the phone to ring is to lie on my back on a green silken rug with a hooker in my mouth And on my big toe, I placed very carefully, because it's a rather difficult thing to do, 4 jugs, one on top of another. The first one is a red one, the second blue, the third green. I then toss them into the air, and they fall on the ground, shattering all over the place, making a most awful mess. It's quite fun to watch, really. Another thing I do when I'm waiting for the phone to ring is to sing children's lullabies. Rock-a-bye, baby, in the treetop. When the wind blows, the cradle will rock.
Clement Freud, why do you chant?
Repetition, 2 rocks.
Well done, Clement Freud. 17 seconds for waiting for the phone to ring. Clement Freud, starting now.
It's a very negative thing to do, and the best thing that you are able to pass your time away in doing this is that
You fell in the same slough that I did.
And you're both sitting beside, yes, you're sitting the slough over there.
slough.
Derek Nimmo, who challenged, has 10 seconds for the subject of waiting for the phone to ring, starting now.
Sometimes I have
Kenneth Williams.
Well, fluff hesitation, call
Yes,
it what you
in
will.
slough. So you have a point, Kenneth. You have 8 seconds for waiting for the phone to ring, starting now.
Invariably, I find myself doodling. I get out a pencil and paper and I just doodle. I do lovely little drawings.
Lucy Bartlett, why do you challenge?
Double doodle.
Yes, a repetition of doodle. You doodle too much, Kenneth. I'm terribly sorry. So your double doodle gives Lucy a point, and there are 1 second, Lucy, for waiting for the telephone to ring, starting now.
I do rather disgusting.
No, 2 points. Lucy, it is your turn to begin. Getting my high heel caught in the pavement, starting now.
Getting my high heel caught in the pavement is something I haven't done for a very long time, because these days high heels are not high heels or otherwise stiletto heels. They're very flat and round. So many years ago, I was walking down Oxford Street in my elder sister's high-heeled shoes. I was rather embarrassed about having them because I wasn't supposed to be wearing them. I came to a level crossing and...
Clement Freud.
hesitation is deviation, but a level crossing in Oxford Street.
So, Clement Freud, you take over this subject now. Getting my high heel caught. Would you like to talk on that subject? I'll tell you how many seconds. There are 37 seconds for that subject, starting now.
Getting my high heels caught in the pavement is something which seldom happens because I'm usually arrested as soon as I put on my high-heeled shoes. A policeman comes along and says, prior to stepping off the road onto the pavement, I have to inform you that you are behaving in a manner liable to cause a breach of the peace. Unhand me, I say unto the policeman.
Kenneth Williams, why?
It's all to do with interviewing this policeman, but it's nothing to do with getting your high heel caught in the pavement.
It's very devious, isn't it? There it are. So you can take over the subject for us, Kenneth, now. Getting my high heel caught in the pavement, Kenneth, starting now.
On one occasion when I had to wear these nylons and a pair of very high-heeled shoes was in this sketch of double dozen double dammers, you see.
Lucy Bartlett, why do you challenge?
Well, because it's nothing to do with getting it caught in the pavement.
You mean that double-double was a repetition?
Well, I thought it was...
Yes, double-double's repetition and... Well done, Lucy. 10 seconds and another point to you for getting my high heel caught in the pavement, starting now.
The last time I got my high heel caught in a pavement was extremely embarrassing because there was a whole army behind me of soldiers. They all...
Clement Freud, why do you challenge?
Hesitation.
No. No. I mean, 2 seconds for getting my high heel caught in the pavement, starting now.
So these soldiers said to me...
Well, we'll never know what those soldiers said to her.
No, but she's gained another point. She's catching up, but Clement Freud is still in a definite lead over Derek Nimmo, who is leading the other two. Kenneth, it's your turn to begin this round. Don't look like that. The subject's gambling at 60 seconds, starting now.
Gambling is unquestionably evil. There are no two ways about this, and I don't think any religious body would oppose me in arguing on that score. It is a way whereby people imagine that by laying down something small, they will get back something big. And as such, it's a disgrace, because all of life teaches us that only virtue and the long way round is the right way round. There is no shortcut to good fortune, and if any of you think that you're going to find a shortcut to good fortune, I'm here to tell you that you're very much mistaken. And I think that when these governments do it in the way of this...
Lucy Bartlett has afraid challenge you, Kenneth. Awfully sorry to stop you because we were enjoying it. Lucy, what's your challenge?
I think it's deviation.
It was
more
deviation,
of a
it was
lecture.
repetition, and it was absolutely everything, I thought. Lucy, you have now 21 seconds for gambling starting now.
Gambling is something much more romantic. It's something that lambs do in the spring. There they are.
Derek Nimmo.
Hesitation.
Alas, it was. She was so overcome with her sudden inspiration that she lost a point. 14 seconds for gambling. Derek Nimmo starting now.
Please can I put £2 each way on Little Buttercup? Yes, says the man. How awfully kind of you to place your bet with me. I always do. I always come here every time this year for Goodwood, because it's one of my favourite race meetings. 20 shillings for...
Well, what an interesting state of play we're at. Derek Nimmo and Clement Freud are neck and neck. And this is the last round. How to be perfectly happy. What a good subject for such a last round. Would you talk on this subject, Clement Freud, please, starting now?
The best way of becoming perfectly happy is to eradicate from your life every vestige of unhappiness that might lie therein. You examine yourself most carefully and say, what nasty difficulties do I have which weigh heavily on my poor brain? Yes.
Lucy Bartlett, you challenged.
Oh, well, he hesitated.
Yes, he did. Yes, indeed, yes.
And
you
lost.
have a point. He who hesitates is lost in this game. 42 seconds for you, Lucy, for how to be perfectly happy starting now.
The best way to be perfectly happy is to be perfectly sane and normal. It's to be very kind to your friends, to eat an awful lot of food.
Kenneth Williams, why do you challenge?
Deviation.
Why?
Well, perfect happiness has nothing to do with sane normality. A lot of idiots are perfectly happy.
Speaking personally, I quite agree, Kenneth. 34 seconds for how to be perfectly happy, Kenneth, starting now.
The only way to be perfectly happy is, of course, to be only present in the conscious sense, and that is to say, to have no past sense, no fore sense, only to be living in the
Clement
present.
Freud, why do you challenge?
3 senses.
Oh, yes, there were a lot of senses.
Does
yes.
it matter? And it was so lovely what I was doing.
Loveliness doesn't come into this game. It's cut and
I'm
thrust,
just getting
Kenneth.
worked up. Cut off there I was, in my...
Yes, in your prime, all right. How to be perfectly happy, Clement, starting now.
Go around to all your friends and beg them to love you. Love me, you say, in order that
Derek Nimmo, why do you challenge?
Too many me's.
Love me, yes?
No, love you, love me.
There were too many loves, weren't there?
But he
Too
said
many
me.
me's. We had too many.
I'll
One
put it to
me.
the audience, the game is neck and neck. I cannot come between these two men. Do you think that Derek Nimmo's challenge was justified? Too many me's. If you think it was, will you cheer? If you think it wasn't justified, will you boo? And will you all do it now? The boos have it. Clement Freud, you have a point. How to be perfectly happy, 20 seconds left, starting now.
And so my dear friends gather around and say you really are a perfectly super chap. And I become enormously happy, in fact, perfectly happy. But there are other ways of reaching this. You can go to the milkman and say, dear milkman, fond of you as I am, it would be of enormous advantage to me if you could leave 3 pints...
Derek Nimmo's challenge, why?
Just counting up the number of enormouses, actually. Repetition, too many enormouses.
Too many enormouses.
Enormously happy, enormous satisfaction.
Milkman, enormous
milkman.
Enormous.
Kenneth, you usually support your friend on that
Oh,
side
I do,
of the table.
really. I do. I love him. I do. It's true. I'll make him perfectly happy.
Derek, Kenneth Williams and Clement Freud, I should say, are announcing their engagement at the end of the series. But right now, Kenneth has helped Derek to gain another point, because there's 1 second left for how to be perfectly happy. Derek Nimmo starting now.
How to be perfectly happy.
Well, I think, seeing the way Derek and Clement played the game, I think the final result is fully justified. They are both equal. Let me first of all mention, though, that Kenneth Williams was in 4th place. Lucy Bartlett came up with a final spurt, but didn't manage to get anywhere near the winners. She is a very good second, but our winners in a clear lead are Derek Nimmo and Clement Freud, equal.
The chairman of Just a Minute was Nicholas Parsons. The program was devised by Ian Messiter and produced by David Hash.